All right. So we'll run for about 30 minutes, I think, and then we'll go from there. So, hello everybody. My name is JC, and would like to share this experience with you. Very grateful for Jill to have me on. This is about healing, spirituality, and most importantly, because of the current situation in Australia, where all the guys are there having a very difficult time. And did you have any questions before we wanted to get into my experience, Jill?
No, well, I was going to introduce you when you've introduced yourself, so that's okay. But yeah, so JC, all right, it was about, this is the first time we've really connected, but we're in a similar group together, and I just wanted to share your insight with my listeners and my followers that follow my work on YouTube. And with regards to keeping your vibration raised, but not only that, how we work with energy to make real changes in our lives. So, for example, just as a quick reference, I've used quantum energy, and JC is going to explain it a little bit better than I can. You may have to give a little brief about your background and knowledge with this, JC, when I've finished in a minute. But my own experience is years of working in the spiritual realm, but not only that, when I had a lot of allergies, I used to have anaphylactic, where my mouth would swell and my lips would swell with eating certain food and certain toxins and all sorts of things like that. So just by blessing my food, connecting with spirit, blessing my food, and releasing like all the toxins and everything from my body and asking for them to be rendered absolutely only of healthy for my body, I got rid of that whole being allergic to any food. I'm not allergic to any food now. I'm fine. But I was allergic to tomatoes and strawberries and many sauces and all sorts of things like that. So this is an extension of what the videos that I did a couple of last week, or regarding praying before you go and have the V. So that's what I wanted to share this video about for the listeners, with regards to how just praying and asking for protection, if you're going to go and have the V, by utilizing quantum energy and calling in a higher power, how it can assist us. So now I'll hand it over to JC, who can share a little bit, first of all, about himself and his background, because that would be useful for the listeners.
Okay. Thanks, Jill, and very, very, very great to be on here. Very blessed, and would like to use this opportunity to give as deep of a message as I can to bridge the gap between what we can see, feel, touch, smell, all our senses, and bridge that across to another plane of existence as best as we can during this time. Okay, so my background is I'm a Southeast Asian, and I grew up in Australia and in Melbourne. So I did the education all from primary, secondary, tertiary, and the PhD. So I'm quite qualified in profession. So my background is more in the engineering side, sciences, and now in finance. So that's just how things work when you climb up the corporate ladder. And I would like to break this experience down into several parts. So the first one is what I went through and how to recover from the problems that I encountered in terms of bacteria going to the body, fighting, rejection, and then the recovery phase. And then more linking to the spirituality and the underlying theme of how it helps to turn yourself away from the dark forces that are at hand. And as seductive as they are, it does get you in that trap. So it's how to overcome, how to exceed, and how to be yourself again. And I think that is the overall journey of what life is about as we enter these sorts of times. Okay, so I rewind back to approximately 10 years, 12 years, 15 years, give or take. And during that time, my life was fantastic. So I had an abundance of help, resources, wealth, and I was free to do what I wanted to do. And I did very well academically, did very well in my jobs, and I didn't really care. And that was when I started to fall from grace because the pride took over. Right. And what happened was I went on a trip to Southeast Asia, and eventually, because of the lifestyle that I was maintaining, I didn't care about my body. I didn't care about what I was eating. I just went for it. And I was diagnosed with mycoplasma pneumonia. And that was only found out until I got back to Australia. Because of the lack of instruments to measure of what it was. So that was the first thing. And I didn't know I had it. I didn't know. The body started to degrade. There was a bit of a fear there. It hit me. I had denial. The health started to decline. There was definitely regret and conceding. And then I was very desperate. So I did go to the clinics in Melbourne and see what it was. And that's when the guys there did a fantastic job to diagnose exactly what it was. And I was on antibiotics. Antibiotics, in my experience during that time, didn't really help. I had to up the treatments from 1 gram and kept upping the concentration. And as far as I could research myself through the literature and the on the line, those bits of information, it makes all the bad bacteria harder, and it forms different versions of it, and it evolves. And I was getting sicker. Mm-hmm. So what was the result of that was the depletion of my own resources, time, money, focus. It was a total loss. I was really heartbroken, and I didn't really expand to my family at the time about this because it felt like my own battle. Mm-hmm. So during that time, I did go to church. I asked my guides, my God, and I felt they weren't listening. So there was only one thing I could do. I was to fight. And that was the breaking point of where my own mentality said, look, my old life is over. I had a great time. This is a challenge that I need to now wake up to. So I'm very blessed to actually have that challenge. And that was about 2 years into it. So the health was not doing so great. Mm-hmm. But during that time, that's when you started waking up. So that's the first phase. Having something enter your body which you don't want gives you the wake-up call, the awareness. Mm-hmm. And to go through all of those things first is very normal as a human response. So after that, maybe some people will have already gone through that. Maybe some people are already going through that. Exactly. And I wish that they would quickly go through this phase and recognize at the end you have to fight. It is a fight for your body, your soul, your mind, and it drains you. So resistance is the way to go. And the more you resist, and the more that you push back against the negative energy, and you ask for the good energy, is when you start turning. And that was the first thing I did when I went to church. I asked. And then from there, it did for me to help me cool down what I was angry about, what I couldn't get. I was blaming myself. Why didn't I have the life that I had before? But now I look back at it, and I looked at it as a change, and you have to change. This is a challenge that gives you a new cocoon to evolve, to break out of. And that is the first stage of what this is about. So even if you do get the V, or you choose to get the V, or you don't choose to get the V, it is still a challenge. And everyone has different grades of challenges, and the difficulties are tuned to what you perceive it to be. So you can choose to try and resist and to try and fight it. And that is the first part. So the second phase of what I went through in my experience was that it already happened. So there's nothing I could do about it. It's in my body. It was bad. There were rashes. There were lots of symptoms, coughing, very bad things. So the antibiotics did help. It did give me some relief, but it didn't actually cure anything. So I did search what was the cure, and nothing really came on until the herbal side of it started kicking in. And there was some nagging from somewhere. I don't really know what it was, but the feeling of what I asked for started to come back to me. And it was to indicate to me that health comes from vitality. Health comes from being natural. Health comes from being connected, being grounded. And so I went for a bit of a walk down in the parks and did a bit of solitude. And during that time, I was in pain, but that's when I connected better to the earth. And even though I wasn't in the best state of mind or the state of body, but that was when I really, really called out. And there was no one there, but I called out and I really asked for help. And that was the time when you reflect on who you are, to absorb what the earth has to give for you at this time. So resetting and finding yourself in solitude is the second phase of what I went through. So that took a little bit of time because I didn't know how to do it. And then the third phase of the situation was the healing phase and reconnecting. And how that comes about is to try many different things. So the first one that I used to have in good habits was the green tea, the antioxidants, the honey and the ginger and the lemon. So I went through that. So that helped a little bit, but the pain was still there. The viruses were still there. It was the toxins. I was eating chips and I cut that down. I was eating manufactured food, the sausage rolls and the meat pies. I cut that out. I gave up on everything that I previously knew, that I wanted to eat, but I knew it would be better if I didn't eat it. And transformation, changing the diet. I didn't have coffee. I didn't have Coke. I didn't have the soft drinks. I gave up all of that. And that dramatically changed the body. And that responded very well. I suppose we'll go into the specifics of why that is so later, but I'll continue on.
I don't think we need to, why the change of diet is so beneficial. I think most people know going into a healthier diet makes you so much more healthful. It's not, well, personally, I don't think it's rocket science to eat live food that is like vegetables and things that have a vibration in them. It replenishes your body. So that, in my opinion, I mean, I've never drank soft drinks at all. I just don't drink them. And I do like a little bit of sugar and in chocolate and things like that, but my diet is relatively very good. And I think a lot of people still manage to have a good diet. Not everybody does. A lot of, a lot of the Western diet is not healthy, but I think most of us are cottoning on to how important it is to have that healthful live diet, like fresh fruit and vegetables, juices, things like that. So, and I know sugar is a big bad one. I do know that. It's hard for us that have sweet tooth, but that is definitely degrades your cells, because sugar is actually quite bad for you. It's a toxin that doesn't rejuvenate your cells, it degenerates eventually. So I just wanted to say that. So yeah, let's move on to the more energetics of probably the quantum thinking and helping people get into the energetic vibration of the quantum thinking, I think might be.
Yes. Okay. So what happened was, during this time in solitude, I took a book with me and I started writing on who I was. And writing apparently imprints who you are onto the book. And I wrote things that I didn't like. I wrote what I did wrong, and I wrote what I wanted to be. And then I burnt the book.
Okay, so you journaled. Journaling is really powerful. Yeah, fantastic.
So a lot of ladies do this. A lot of the females like to write, and it means a lot.
I've journaled my whole life, writing a book now. So it's very powerful. I think who was it? I think Oprah originally made this most popular, going back in the 90s, about journaling. It's very powerful. But what is even more powerful is affirmation. So that's right. Writing that affirmation down and then retraining your brain.
That's right. So the first thing is to imprint yourself and extract what you really wanted to say from your heart, because that really means more than the words that you actually say to other people, because you're talking to yourself. And the guys out there can hear you. The spiritual energy out there, the consciousness, they know this, but you need to interact with it. So I figured, okay, so I'm given this body, I'm given this life, and I want to change. And that was when I started to trigger. So the third phase of the life that I once had was changing. I accepted and respected the change. Whoever inputted or whatever inputted that virus onto me, I forgave that. And that's part of change. And the road to recovery was to forgive what you once were and what you did. And from my own perspective, my own heart, I forgave myself on all the bad things. I let go. And once I let go, that's when you lift and it feels lighter. And that's when I would say, this virus really, really declined. So it's the belief of what was and now what is and what can be, that you are happy to accept something new and push out the old. So the old collects together and you let it all go, even with the virus. So that's how it dissipates, because you're letting go of not only the virus, you're letting go of the negative thoughts, you're letting go of who you were, you're draining yourself away from what you gathered previously, what your life was, and into a life that could be. And that's the replenishment part of the spirituality concept. And now it's not a concept, it is now a reality, because the energies of the earth is now transforming, that it makes it very easy for you to accept this change, and everything is flow. And I started reading into these books. So let me go on back to the problem with the virus. So that degraded. The symptoms went down. I was eating more healthy. I was very happy. I was more confident in myself to interact with other people. So I dug myself out of that hole from solitude. And I said, I didn't need this anymore. I'm very happy that I was there. And I started reconnecting with the world, and I saw things differently. I was looking at the kids eating their fish and chips, and I was thinking, okay, they're going to go through this maybe, hopefully not. It's a normal diet for the Western guys to have the burgers and the fries. It gets very easily adaptive in terms of your lifestyle. But I suppose in the end, if you're happy to accept change of one lifestyle to the next, to the next, to the next, and eventually you're not tied or clinging on or attached to a specific need. So the message in the fourth part of the stage that I went through was to be able to look into myself and detach away from being very heavily in the body, which means I wasn't very afraid to die.
Yeah.
Meaning I've overcome this.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter anymore. I'm here now, and being afraid to lose didn't matter anymore, because you could control it. You could have it any time. You could experience it any time. You could recall what you had previously, and now you've gone through all the hardships, all the difficulties, and you had to face them exactly as you have experienced it. Many people fall along the way. I failed, I fell, I tripped over, and that was normal. I believe in time, what you'll feel and see is that you don't give up. And the hope is there because you asked for it. And the energy comes in. It just keeps coming in and lifts you up. So quantum energy, now I'll define the fourth state. The fourth state was to reach up and let go of your body. And I realized, okay, during this time, these 10 years, my grandma passed. My aunts passed. My other grandma passed. And I was there. So during this time, I felt it was very interesting how when the time I had the virus and I went to those cemeteries and the funerals, the spirits were attacking me. It was very painful. The body was extremely painful. And I had to walk out of the cemetery because there was some forces that was very clear that I had something wrong with me, and they knew that was something that they could interact with me with. They could cause something. And I was very in pain. I had to leave. And then I went back in, same problem. So after the healing and the rejection and the solitude and also the change, that's when I realized I wasn't afraid anymore. Because when I went in and I was healed and I was getting better, that's when the confidence started kicking in, and I didn't feel that anymore. The spirits could not attack me. They couldn't get into those bad positions and go into the body. So I was protected. I asked for protection. And I was very grateful for that. So it comes with the fourth one. The fourth part of the journey is to be thankful, to appreciate, and to now reflect back on what was given to you. I think that was the four legs, the four pillars of this spiritual journey. There we go. Then afterwards, looking back at it, you could now join the dots and you realize in the first phase, I was collecting all the negative energy. I was happy to collect anything. I was desperate. And then the second part of it was more, I was cutting things off and I was choosing to recover. I was fighting to recover. I was trying to realize what was good and what was bad. And that's part of the awakening and the transition and the change. Then the third one comes in with the recovery, yourself, looking after yourself, looking at it that way. Then you're transforming because you've now taken to a physical state and you've looked beyond and you've connected better because you've gone through these hardships to what you believe that gives you that connection. So you've built an interface. You've now connected better to the spiritual because you've asked for it. So the words, what you wrote, what you said, not to others, but to the world and through yourself, that does matter.
Because you're actually talking to your higher, sorry to interrupt, but you're actually talking when you write to yourself. You're talking to your higher self. You're calling in your guidance.
That's right. And you can extract your essence from that in eternity. And that comes in many states, many levels. Everyone's different. So I can't speak with in a reference frame to other people, but at least that's what I went through. And then the fourth one is the confirmation and the validation, and to solidify that. And then the change of that phase is now complete into a physical form. And then I suppose the next challenge will come, but it will be different every time. So whoever is taking the V and knowing or unknowingly being acceptance of it will have very similar, or could have very similar experiences. But it's not the end of the road. You don't look at it.
It all depends on the way they look at it and where their vibration is.
That's right. And to fight it is the first way to go. And there's more to that. This is to change, to adapt, to be part of it. And knowing that was the challenge given to you at this time. So that would probably bottleneck what can be inflicted upon you. So I would put it as something in terms of sports. So sports, when I did the athlete training back in the schooling days, it was very difficult. So we went through very, very stressful times. I went to a grammar school, and the sweat was all there. It was difficult. And we went through all the hardships before we could overcome the competition and therefore accept the award. But the award was already there waiting for us. And that's what I realized after.
Just needed to claim it, didn't you?
That's right. So it's the same thing. Even with this, as bad as it looks, these V things that you can choose to have, but it won't, I would say, be beneficial to you. But if it is inflicted upon you, you don't have any choice to, I would say, avoid it or even decline it. Then if it has to be, and it has to become part of you, then that is part of what you need to experience and then overcome as a challenge.
Yeah, and
there we go.
Yeah, so, and I definitely believe that intention is part of it. So if you're choosing to, your feeling and your resonance sits in a vibration of such fear when you're having it, you're going to render your energetic field more open and vulnerable to negative energy. So, and I would say unto that, if you come in a more powerful state to receiving the V, where you haven't asked from a place of begging or needing, but you've asked from a place of empowerment, excuse my dog, playing with its toy, you come from a place of empowerment whereby you're asking but intending to connect with your higher self, your higher power, and asking for protection and intending the protection, because you are already a pure aspect of God. So God is within you. It's within your heart. God is within your heart. God, Creator, Christ consciousness is within your heart. So you're really just connecting into that aspect of it to call in the protection. So you're coming by intending from a much higher stance. I'm so sorry. I'm going to have to take this ball off her. Sorry, hold on.
That's okay. So I would like to add a little bit on top of that. The situation with Australia is not very nice, where they are forcing people to take it because they don't even know. And it's the ignorance and then the fear that kicks in. And that is the trap. If you continually feed off those two with anger, which I was, and also regret, which I also was, then that's the loop that solidifies the degrading of your body. Because
Absolutely.
the mind,
yes. Yeah. Because you've lowered your vibration with that anger and, regret and just, the aspect of actually you said you forgave the situation and all that. So forgiveness is a major key part of the recovery phase. So the forgiveness of forgiving yourself is the most important thing for allowing it to happen, for allowing the situation to happen. And this could relate to anything. We get stuck in an energetic vibration if something really bad has happened to us. And by not forgiving yourself for allowing it to happen, whether it was conscious or unconscious that it actually happened, we hold within our resonance such a strong, it's a regret, anger, just a much lower vibration, whereas the forgiveness is a much higher vibration. And that's, as you said, brings in the healing. That's what's really powerful.
It is. So in terms of religion, you look into the Bible, and it's written in multiple versions, multiple languages, multiple religions as well, as respectful as I can be. The forgiveness is translated into letting go, also sacrifice. You do have to change, and change comes with cost, sacrifice, not being who you were and who you want to be. So it is a yin and yang, the being courageous enough to jump from the darkness into the light. There is a big contrast there. And during that phase, there is so much temptation to have you not change, have you not take that leap of faith, because it's so unknown. You're so comfortable with who you were, what you had, and
that's the ego state, though, JC. That is the ego state.
That's right.
Right. But if we connect into our heart space, then we're no longer in the ego, so we don't have that same battle.
That's right. So that makes it easier for you to then connect with what you need in the future. But a lot of guys, obviously, they look at what they have, because it's a short-sighted, I would say, way of living, because it's very easy to look into your own ego and rely on it and to feed off it as the fuel of what you live for. And it's a very small cycle, because it's affected by other people. But in this state, you're affected by yourself. And it doesn't matter what other people do to you or do for you, but it does matter on what you are willing to receive from them. So the message is a little bit harder to conceive if you're in an ego state, because you're willingly blocking what is good for you, and you knew it, but you're choosing something else instead of that. And that,
absolutely. The ego is the hardest thing. Like, an ego is not all bad. I'm not saying ego is all bad. Like, we need ego to protect ourselves. It's that whole. The ego is the thing that has been working on, and that we've lived with, that has helped us survive all this time. When we start to not only just rely on our ego and we come to something else and we want to make changes, I say to a lot of my clients, it's very, very difficult to transcend the ego when you're making changes like brain retraining, for example, on a 30-day listening to an audio, that you'll come up against different things. What will happen is your ego may make you feel like annoyed listening to the thing, or it may actually make you feel sick or uncomfortable. But that's your ego just doing what it's doing to protect you, because it's going, I don't want to change. Ego doesn't want to change. Okay. Ego doesn't necessarily want your growth, your spiritual growth either. So, and this is the whole thing that we need to remind people: you're not your ego.
That's right.
So to out and move out of a limiting belief or of where you've been, to make real changes, we do need to move beyond the ego. And spirituality in particular is all very, very, very much about transcending the ego and moving and staying in a heart space much more often, all the time. And that's where it'll have you question yourself, because the ego always comes back in. But we just need to have a more healthier life experience with you in control of your ego, not your ego in control of you. And then we become much more empowered beings when we do that. So that's my take on it.
That's right. Because you have an intention. Ego comes with control, comfort, and being in the status quo. And it is about power. It comes with comfort, and power over other things is very soothing. But being able to release that power and let it come again, that takes a lot. To know who you are and being not afraid to let that go.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes with, even with the corporate realm, a lot of people climb up and they collect resources, power, influence, and their ego kicks in, because it's
well, that's this 3D timeline of duality, dark and light. We're and the Industrial Revolution has all been about that next rung, that next level, that push, better, competitive sports. It really, it's about someone's ego, and same with climbing the corporate ladder, pushing and striving to that next thing. I'm not saying it's all about the ego, but it's the accolades that come with that really this kind of society really only works with, or it's really not until now, this whole age of Aquarius and all that and companies are starting to really kick in from more of a heart space. But geez, it's been a long time coming, hasn't it?
Yes. So that's probably where this phase of, I would suppose, 500-600 years, give or take, the pendulum is now swinging away from your controlled based advancement, I would suppose, for humanity, and it's coming towards a more healthy, balanced approach where you have to accept both bad and good things. And to understand it is the first step, is to know who, what, why, when, where. And the questions come when you ask them. And then the answers come either before that but you haven't just realized it because the answer's already there. And that's when once you come to a higher state, it's like leveling up. You've uh, uh, morphed into a better being, and your body becomes more valuable to you because you're interacting with it. You want to not abuse your body, you want to look after your body to prolong as much time as you can during this era. And people that have taken the V and that don't know this, these bad people out there, they don't want you to experience more things. They want to cut you off, and they want you to come again and cut you off again and keep you trapped in that ego system. Whereas now you have the opportunity to look further and live longer and to experience more before you come again. And eventually, once you're completing many cycles, there are many, many talented people, talented kids that I grew up with. They just mastered mathematics. They mastered sports very well. They had the talent. It was like they had lived a previous life and they went through all the hard times and they just came again, and it was there waiting for them. They had the answers with them. They knew it and they just did it. And this is what this is about. The spirituality comes from the vibrations that you would exhibit to other people, and it reflects back from other people back onto yourself, as well as now that if you look at the fruits in your Coles and your Safeway, they've been frozen for a few months, so it's a little bit harder. But when you go to the farms out in the, I think Ballarat, you pick the cherries, and then you actually talk to the cherry and you say, how fresh are you? And it emits that frequency back into your hand, and it reflects back onto you because you can interact with it. And that's something a lot of people are not quite aware of at the moment, but that's okay. But it does give you an indication of what are you putting into your mouth and what are you putting into your body that you are now absorbing, and it comes out as a different form, and that goes back into the ground, and the cycle begins again. And that is why the awareness of what you're consuming, what you're interacting, the poisons that you're taking, even anything manufactured, your phone's emitting those vibrations, EMFs. I have to turn my phone off every night.
Me too.
I don't like it, and put it in the lounge. These things matter. They really, really matter. That's trying to help you solidify where you are in terms of vibration, to help you then have a carry journal, a journey to carry onto the next journal, onto your next, I would say, phase of your life. And I think that is part of where we are at the moment.
Lovely. Very good. Very good, JC.
I hope that helped to give you a different perspective.
No, that's fantastic. I'm sure some listeners will get some great benefit out of this. Yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to add? Yeah.
I suppose the summary is that it does come in quarters, quadrants, and the number 4 does make a big difference. Obviously, the 3 is the Trinity. There are many, many descriptions of that in the old texts, but I suppose in a process, it does come down to 4 things, and it comes from the first one is usually the problem, and the second one is to engage with the problem, interface with it. The third one is to change and to morph and to adapt, and the fourth one is to solidify. I think that's the somewhat kind of a framework of what we can identify as what to understand and what to expect as a being. And then from there, you have different planes. So the first one will be less difficult. The V thing coming up is very high difficulty. You're talking about level 4, level 5 difficulty. Not many will be able to climb that ladder and overcome it. That's why they have to come again, and that makes sense. But eventually, I do hope that they do overcome it in another lifetime. And it's something that they will probably have to encounter because they didn't do it the first time. That's normal. That's very normal. The things that we've aged and we weren't able to overcome when we were as a child, we had many failures, and it would be good to overcome those challenges too. And eventually, you'll get very talented in the future. And I believe there is hope, and there is surely substantial ingredients, substantial fuel, substantial help there waiting for you to ask for and to have receive. And once that is secured and you understand how to converse on that channel and tune in, it makes it very easy then to leap ahead in faith without having to look. And that, I suppose, is part of the spirituality. It doesn't always need to be a physical proof of what you want or what you have. It is what you haven't seen yet, but it is already there waiting for you.
Mm-hmm. You just got to allow it in.
That's right.
You got to be receptive to receive. That's right. That's the main thing. Yeah. So, that's absolutely beautiful. That's so true, JC. It really is. And I think the more you work on the level that you're saying, and you just take the first few steps, and you just start making those changes, and then you start bringing in this new energy. The more you start doing it, the more your vibration changes, the more confident you get, and the stronger your faith becomes. I know that's been the situation for me. I do believe everything that I get. I do believe what my guides share with me is truth, because they really only want my upliftment. And they've shown me time and time and time again. Yeah, it's just making that, really first step. If you're not sure about trusting your own intuition or, your own connection, it's making that start to do it. And then just having the faith that, you are a powerful creator. You are a mini creator God. and
it goes with time, I think, Joel. This is probably what I would close with in duality terms. Faith is being able to accept and respect the future, while forgiveness is being able to respect and accept the past. And when you go both ways and you stretch yourself beyond your limitations in both ways, and that's when you open up. And when you open up, that's when you start having that platform that you can put yourself onto and look up and reach up. Hopefully that would give some insight of more of the language that we're limited to. But if the thoughts go into that and you start stretching, I think that becomes a more active part of the training process that we're here to have in this life cycle.
So that's the manifesting part, correct?
That's right, yes.
Yes.
It gets deeper, but on a basic level, you stretch yourself. That's why stretching is quite physically, I would say.
It's important.
Yeah, it is important.
It is. Yep.
There we go.
Yeah, no, it is. It's very important. But you've also got to have a plan. If you don't have a plan for that stretching, like if you just leave it up to whatever and without a plan or a goal at the end, we don't get to our destination. So that's also very important.
Well, I suppose a lot of viewers from your group would want to know, how did I come up with this? How did I know about this? Where did this all come from? The first thing is, there is no language. There is no textbook that wrote this for me. I wrote it myself. I was the composer of the framework. But I could join the dots now because I look back at it on what I experienced, and I would probably do things differently if I already knew at that time. But I didn't have that. So I had to make it up and really challenge it as I go. I had to adapt. I had to change.
I'm pretty sure you would, whether conscious or unconsciously, had guides or had something along the way to give you this possible. Well, I would have thought to give you what you're knowing. You know, it would have come channeled in either quiet time, meditation or something, and you would have had others, way showers, guides, cross your path and give you guidance as well. That just all adds to the whole picture, your knowledge.
Yes, it does. And I did ask for help. That was the solitude part, the second phase. Correct. Yes. Because you do need to ask for help. Asking for help is very beneficial. There is no shame in connecting with others with the experience and the problems that you have. That's fine. That's perfectly fine. Because it then declares yourself in a state that you're ready to face it. If you're blocking yourself off, you're cutting yourself off, then no one can help you. That's bad.
Yes, I'm fully aware of that. I remember going through that myself. It was like a dark night of the soul, and I probably went through that about 23 years ago, and it was just a feeling of just totally giving up and being over the emotional pain. And that was a complete surrendering, and like I've used this expression kind of before, but shouting and screaming and just surrender, and then also asking for help. So it was a combination of that.
That's right.
Yeah. So, and it came, obviously, it came.
You have to be willing to surrender because you can't be afraid to die.
Exactly.
Death is.
And I think when you get low enough, like people that have gone through really bad illness or things like a lot of contrast in their life, a lot of pain from childhood or an experience, PSD kind of thing, you've got nothing left to lose because you can't go on doing the same thing. You can't go on living the same way because the pain never leaves you unless you finally face it. So that's what I mean in that respect. And
hopefully there will be another session with you. Perhaps that is more specific because this one's related to the V, but post-trauma, war, anyone that has served in military, betrayal would be the most potent form of hurt and damage that people have gone through and are still probably going through. We're speaking about the guys in the States, a lot of guys in the Middle East that served their time. I had some friends in Australia whose dad served in Afghanistan as well. So they're going through a hard time, but it's similar in process to heal.
It is. It's basically, I don't mean to interrupt, but it's all the same. It's still pain on a certain level, whether you've had extreme pain as a child and you weren't raised very well, or you've had abuse or whatever, and or it's the military and you've seen things that you shouldn't see. You get to a stage where you cannot just live your life normally. You have to decide, I don't want this to be my story anymore. I don't want this pain anymore. I want to transcend it. So that that I would say is, really powerful. And that's the real thing that makes changes.
In the end of the day, I suppose you will remember this, but you'll remember it differently. And I will probably leave you with one quote that I took from somewhere. I think it was a TV series, but it was fantastic. I believe it goes something like this. You can't change what has happened, but what will change is how you see it. And that thought of transcribing history in your terms and your version of it comes with fruition if you can forgive it, or even have faith that it was done because there were greater reasons behind it.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what I think I said in my, not the tarot video, the video before. It is the one before that, I think it was. It's regarding your soul's growth, because there isn't growth without great contrast. So, and I think a lot of people quite well, I don't know if everybody does, but I think most people sort of understand. They've been through pain and everything. They do understand it's for their growth, and what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, kind of thing. Because it's particularly Aussies, they're really tough like that. But unfortunately, some people stay in the story of it, or don't know how to transcend the story of it. And what we've talked about today, whether it's transcending a health issue, it's the same as transition the emotional pain, because it does all come back to forgiveness. That is the huge one. Yes. Okay.
The last underlying comment that needs to be said is in the Western society culture, a lot of people come out to interact with other people when they're in a good state of mind, or when they're shining. They want to be seen as successful. But in a state like this, and you're in trouble, or in debt, or in problems, it is necessary to still interact. You can't put it all into yourself and say, I'm going to swallow this and this is my problem. But people can help you. That's what I'm trying to say. It is good to open and to connect. It'll take time, but that will eventually, you'll come to realize that is the first step to helping, is to connect.
Yes, that's very true. Yes, I think we're in this era now, we're far more open to that, finally, which is great. Yeah.
The internet is fantastic. All right, there we go.
Okay, thank you so much for your time today, JC, and connecting with me to share your wisdom. It's very much appreciated.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.